Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey there, it's Wayfair here, where delivery and setup are as easy as a few taps on your phone. You're relaxing in an old hammock, scrolling Wayfair's app, when you spot it, a brand new patio set. Next thing you know, Wayfair delivers it right to your patio and sets it up. Oh, you need a new grill too? All right, Wayfair's got you covered. With Wayfair's room of choice delivery and fast expert setup on qualifying orders, life gets a little easier. Visit wayfair.com or the Wayfair app.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Motivation is overrated and it's over-indexed. I look at motivation as a nice to have, but not a requirement. It's not permanent, which means it's not a reliable source.
Joining us today is Alan Stein Jr., a performance coach to elite NBA athletes and a keynote speaker working with players like Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry. What separates elite performers from the ones who's like really good?
There were 3 things that I noticed in particular that really united high performers. Number 1, the best of the best never get bored with the basics. Number 2, they earn the right to be confident through the repetitions they get during the unseen hours. And then the last thing I'll say is they're very...
A lot of athletes don't perform under pressure. Where do you see that?
Pressure is completely self-imposed. What often happens is we increase pressure by perceiving a future that hasn't even happened yet. The past and the future only exist in language and they only exist in our mind. The only place we can ever be is in the present moment.
What would be some advice to someone who's striving to become elite in their field?
What I would say is...
Alan Stein, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
I'm so excited to be with you, Marcus. It's been a long time coming.
Definitely, and I'm so excited to have you on the show, episode 250. I wanted something really big for this one and really appreciate that you're taking the time.
Well, congratulations on 250. That's a really remarkable milestone, and you should be very proud. And I'm honored to be number 250 and look forward to a fun chat and hopefully adding some real value to your listeners and viewers.
Definitely. If the listeners don't know, you have spent over 15 years working with elite NBA athletes. So what did that teach you about high performance?
Wow, I picked up a lot during that time. I'm very observant by nature, so I'm always paying attention and listening and just trying to learn and soak stuff up. And during my basketball performance training career, some of the players I was able to work with, work for, and work alongside, some of the rooms I was able to be in, I mean, there was no shortage of just really incredible stuff that I got to see and observe. And one thing that I noticed, and I didn't notice this until I left the basketball world, was what the traits and the disciplines and the mindsets that I saw from elite athletes, that same stuff applies to every area of our life. They apply in business, they apply in our personal relationships. So one of the reasons I'm very passionate about the work I do is that the stuff that I learned through basketball helps me be a better father, helps me be a better member of my community, a better speaker. And that part was really cool. But to answer your question more directly, there were 3 things that I noticed in particular that really united high performers. Number 1, and this was a lesson I learned directly from Kobe Bryant in 2007, is that the best of the best never get bored with the basics. They're constantly working to master the fundamentals, primarily during the unseen hours. Now, this doesn't mean that they only do the basics. They certainly work on more advanced techniques and in basketball, more advanced moves, but it means they never leave the basics, that's really the foundation to which everything else is built. Number 2, they earn the right to be confident through the repetitions they get during the unseen hours, but more importantly, they always remain humble. And in this context, I view humility as someone that is always open to feedback, someone that is open to being coached, but most importantly, someone that realizes that no matter how good they get, they know they can still get better. So they don't play the comparison game and go, hey, I'm the best on my team or I'm the best in our league. They go, can I still get better? And the answer to high performers is that answer is always yes. They earn confidence, but they blend it with humility. And then the last thing I'll say is they're very driven by specific goals and North Stars of what they're trying to achieve, but that's not really what they focus on. What they focus on is the process. They focus on the daily steps. They focus on leveling up their habits. A basketball player's goal might be to make the Hall of Fame, to be an all-star, to win a championship, but that's not what they focus on. What they focus on is how can I get the most out of today's workout? How can I get the most out of today's practice? What do I need to do to get just a little bit better today? And then they just try to stack days. And they know that if you stack enough days and stack enough years, then most of the time, those results will take care of themselves. So those are the three things that I see all high performers unite on.
I see. Is those the three things also, if what separates elite performers from the ones who's like really good? Do you understand what makes that 1%? You mentioned, you know, Kobe, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry. I mean, this is top elite.
Yeah, well, there's two different answers to that. When we're talking about sport where physicality plays a role, then certainly your genetic predispositions and your natural talent play a role. I mean, no one would argue that Kobe Bryant and Kevin Durant and LeBron James were born with some physical tools that you and I weren't born with. You know, so that there's a physical component to being an elite level athlete. And that's not the only separator, but that is a separator. But when we talk about life or we talk about the business world, the physical component is no longer a factor. Now, I still encourage people to take care of their bodies and to prioritize health and wellness for a variety of reasons. But in business, it doesn't matter if you're 5'2" or 7'2". It doesn't matter if you can jump over the backboard or you can't even jump onto a curb. It has nothing to do with your business acumen. So what I would say to really answer your question for all of them, one of the biggest separators is consistency. I believe consistency is a controllable superpower. Very mediocre and average performers, they do what they need to do when they want to, or when it's convenient, or when they feel like it. Elite level performers do it regardless. They do it because that's a standard. They don't behave based on how they feel. They behave to a standard. So there are plenty of times where an elite level player like Stephen Curry might not feel like going to the gym to make 500 shots, but he doesn't really factor in how he feels. He does what he needs to do regardless. So consistency is one of those separators. Another one is simply discipline. Now, those two things are kind of sisters of each other, but discipline is making a decision in the moment that most aligns with the person you're trying to become or most aligns with the goal that you're set. So I would say that the upper 1% in any type of industry has elite level discipline and elite level consistency, plus the three things that I mentioned earlier. They work on the basics and the fundamentals. They earn their confidence, but they stay humble and they're very process centered. You start taking all of that and combine that together, and that's the recipe for being unbelievably successful, really in anything.
For sure. Where does motivation come into all this? Is that important at all?
Personally, I believe that motivation is overrated and it's over-indexed. I look at motivation as a nice to have, but not a requirement. And that's because motivation is a feeling. And just like any feeling, it's not permanent, which means it's not a reliable source. On any given day, as human beings, we can easily feel the roller coaster of emotions and feelings that we all have. I mean, you can be having a wonderful day, get a text message with some bad news, and all of a sudden you're disappointed or you're angry or you're frustrated. And I do encourage everyone to embrace all of those feelings. I never encourage people to resist or suppress or ignore their feelings. I want them to embrace them. I just don't want you to use them to dictate your behavior and how you show up. So having those feelings is important, but we don't let them drive the car. Well, motivation is just a feeling. I don't know about you. I'm not motivated every minute of every day of my life. Now, if you were to line up every human being on earth, I probably would skew towards being a little more motivated a little more often than a lot of people. I'm not arguing that some of that is in my DNA, but I'm not motivated all of the time. But if I allow myself to only perform or only show up or only give my best effort when I'm feeling motivated, then by definition, my performance will be very inconsistent. So I look at motivation as a nice to have, which means when you are feeling motivated, that's wonderful. That's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Use it and ride it and be grateful for it. but don't let that be your sole source of inspiration. What you need is to become disciplined. And as we just mentioned a few moments ago, discipline is making the decision to do something in the moment that aligns with your future self or your future best self, regardless of how you feel. So for me, I have trained myself to be very disciplined in the areas of my life that are most important to me. And I try to behave to a standard, regardless of whether I'm feeling motivated or not.
Yeah, I love that. What are some strategies that can help people perform when the stakes are high? Because it's a lot, you have a lot of athletes that they don't perform under pressure. So where do you see that?
Well, where I always start with that is it's called do the work before the work. Another way of saying that is be there before you get there. And that really comes down to your preparation. One of the ways to alleviate feeling the pressure in a high stakes moment is knowing that you've earned the right to be there, that you've done the work, you've put in the practice, you've gotten the reps during the unseen hours. That's a first step because that will also help build confidence. The other thing to remember is that pressure is completely self-imposed. Pressure is nothing more than an internal story that we tell ourselves. You mentioned that in situations where the stakes are high, on some level, that's just a perception. Now, I'm not arguing that playing in the championship of a basketball game has higher stakes than playing in a scrimmage in the preseason, but your role and your ability to perform is the same in both. If you change the way you view how you need to show up, that's a self-imposed limitation or a perception. In the game of basketball, the court is always the same size, the rim is always the same height, the ball is always the same size. Nothing has changed from a practice to a championship game, except for the story that you tell yourself. And what I found through my own personal experience, as well as working with athletes, is what often happens is we increase pressure by perceiving a future that hasn't even happened yet. And lots of times there's a negative slant to that. We start telling ourselves, well, what if I miss this shot? Or what if I turn the ball over? Or what if we lose this game? And we almost defeat ourselves before anything has even happened. If we are under the understanding that the future is completely hypothetical, elite level performers try to flip that on its head and say, well, if the future is completely made up anyway, I might as well make it up in my favor. I might as well tell myself that, yeah, imagine how great it's going to be when I hit the shot, when we win the game, when I make the great pass. There's no reality to either scenario. Both of them are completely made up. But if we're going to make it up anyway, why don't we make it up so that we have the fairy tale ending? And then if and when that doesn't happen, then deal with it in the moment. But I find that a lot of people, when they're under the perception of pressure, start to tell themselves a negative story about what they don't want to happen, which then only reinforces the chance that it will.
Interesting. So is that another way to say like visualization that you mentioned that you have seen yourself doing something and then that can be negative and positive?
I believe visualization is a very helpful tool. But yes, we want to visualize what we want to happen. We don't want to visualize what we don't want to happen. And even in our language, but even in our self-talk. See, the brain has trouble comprehending two different concepts at the same time. Here's an example. If I'm at the free throw line and it's the end of the game, the score is tied, there's not a lot of time left, the last thing that I want to be saying to myself or thinking to myself is don't miss. Don't miss. Because the brain only understands the miss part of that. It doesn't understand that the don't actually negates it. And you're actually more likely to miss because that's what you're unconsciously programming yourself to do. Instead, you want to have some type of routine that affirms what you're trying to do. Nice and easy, over the front rim, like whatever. Remind yourself that I've made this shot 1,000,000 times in practice, and this is no different. So over the front rim or swish or something like that is more affirming self-talk than don't miss or don't miss short. So we want to constantly tell ourselves what it is that we want to see happen. And that's part of visualization. Picturing yourself doing what you know that you're capable of doing. And you want to try to involve and immerse all of your senses. What does the gym look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like? As much of that as you can. And that also goes back to something I said earlier, is be there before you get there. Do the work before the work. Visualize yourself making a great play before you make the great play. Visualize yourself being a champion before you've earned the right to become a champion. And to clarify, this is not just blindly being positive. This is not toxic positivity. This is programming yourself to see what it is that you want to see, but then at the same time, understanding that you have the strength and the power to be okay if that doesn't help. I had heard a quote, and it was from a famous golfer, and I don't realize who the golfer was, but he said that basically something, and it might have been Jack Nicklaus, but it was something along the lines of his game really improved when he finally accepted that losing was possible. Like, he always put all of this pressure on himself that I have to win, I've got to be the best. And when he realized that, yeah, that's your preference, that's what you want to happen, and that's what you're going to try to make happen. But if you're capable of greatness, you're also capable of sucking. If you're capable of making the shot, you're just as capable of missing the shot. And having that understanding, and basically what he said was, I really started to win when I understood that I'm okay if I lose. I can't stress enough, this doesn't mean you want to lose, you don't prefer to lose, and you're certainly not going to try to lose. But you have to remind yourself, I'm okay with losing, because we live in a very dualistic society where there's up and down, there's right and left, there's light, there's dark, there's joy, there's pain. Well, in order to be able to win, there has to be another side of that coin. And the other side of that coin is to lose. And you have to be okay with that if you want to enjoy the thrill of winning.
Definitely. And also lose and then get over it. Like, I know that Roger Federer was talking about that at a commencement speech, that he has won, I butcher this every time, but let's say he has won 80% of the games he has played, but he has lost almost half the points.
Yes, no, that stat is correct.
So, I mean, that also what you said, that to be okay with losing, but then getting over, you lose the point, moving on from that and continuing and then winning in the long run.
Yes. At the time of this recording, I don't know when this will air, but the NCAA men's basketball championship just happened here in the United States just 2 days ago. And Michigan beat UConn in the final game. Fairly close game. I think it ended up being a 6-point game. There's no better example of that than that championship. The end of March Madness, where 68 teams start in the tournament, and you get all the way down to 2 very worthy teams and programs and coaches and sets of players, but only one of them can win. And Coach Hurley, the coach at UConn, who's already won 2 national championships back-to-back a couple of years ago, I saw him, he had a tweet today, and it said something along the lines of, like, we battled and we played hard, but they won. And that was kind of his way of saying, hey, we have nothing to be ashamed of. Like, we came with the goal of winning. Like, don't get it twisted. Our goal was to win a championship, and we're very disappointed that we didn't win, but we understand that that's part of it. That one of the reasons that winning the 2 championships felt so great is because of how bad it sucks when you lose. And to me, being okay with the opposite of what you're going for is a really powerful disposition. And that's another way to actually alleviate pressure. See, if you feel like the only way that you can survive and the only way that you can be happy and the only way life will be good is if you win, well, then you're putting so much other external pressure on it. Instead, it's, I want to win. I'm going to prepare to win. I'm going to do everything in my power to win. But if I don't, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, that's powerful. So now we are giving a lot of sports examples, but you give a lot of keynotes and advice and your books, tips for business as well. So at what point did you realize that lessons from basketball could be applied just as well in business and leadership?
When I decided to leave the basketball world directly in 2017 and pursue what I do now, which is corporate keynote speaking and speaking for companies and brands and speaking at events and business conferences, yeah, I learned right away how much utility there was, because my audiences and the folks that hired me wanted to hear all of these sports stories because that's something that they had an interest in. But then we all collectively realized, yeah, the lessons are the same. It's no different. I mean, if you're running a business, I mean, that's no different than being the head coach of a team. You have specific goals. One of the things that's slightly different is usually in sport, you have a very specific opponent that you're playing against for a singular game. Whereas in business, yes, you have competitors, you have people that offer the same products or services or similar, but you're not really competing with them per se one-on-one or for a finite time. It's just more, we're all competing for the dollars of the people in the industry that we're trying to serve. So, I mean, there are some nuanced differences, but generally speaking, the principles that it takes to be an elite athlete are the same principles it takes to be elite in business as either an executive or a founder or a CEO or a manager. And the things it takes for a team, like a basketball team, to be super successful are the same things it takes for a business to be successful. And the one other slight nuance difference is size and scale. Basketball teams have roughly 15 players and 5 or 6 coaches, whereas a business might have 5 or 6,000 employees. And then we're also seeing some nuance difference where a lot of folks work remotely now. So you might be managing a team that's all over the country or all over the world. There are some slight differences, but the overall principles are the exact same.
Interesting. So when we talked in the beginning, the 3 points that you had, they can be applied as well, just as well in business, you think?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I know so. And I know technically as a former athlete and now someone that runs a small business, a speaking business, I mean, I apply these things in my own business and in my own life as well.
Interesting. So how would you say that leadership at the highest level in business compared to leadership inside elite sports?
I mean, again, it's the same. You have to be able to set and cast a vision of where it is that you're trying to go. Now, often in sports, it's kind of preset, like the goal's to win a championship. Doesn't have to be, but that's often what it is. In business, there's a variety of different metrics. Maybe you have different revenues goals or sales goals. You have shareholders you're beholden to. There can be a variety of different things, but a leader's job primarily, first and foremost, is to have a positive influence and impact over everybody on the team. But it's to set a North Star and to cast the vision and then make sure that everybody on the team buys in and believes into that vision and then clearly understands their role in helping to make that happen. And then you create a culture of accountability, a culture of high standards, a culture of belief. And then it's your job as the top of the org chart to help make sure that that resonates with everybody. And again, it's more easily done if you have a team of 15 people than if you have a team of 1,500 people or 15,000 people, or in some cases, 150,000 people. So that the scale can certainly provide a challenge. But again, the inner workings and the mechanics are the same.
Interesting. I think also, of course, the size of the teams, but then if you have a basketball team of 15 players, those are elite performers. If you're in a company with 500 employees, let's say they are not all elite performers. Some people they come, they do what they want to do and get home. So you have different levels of performers, I guess you can call it.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. But again, that's completely up to you in your hiring process and what the role is that you're hiring for as to what it is that you're willing to accept. There's an old coaching mantra that holds true in every area of life, in business, in basketball, even in parenting. And that's either you accept it or you correct it. Those are the only 2 options. Either you accept something or you correct it. Now, if you have a large company, there might be certain roles on the team that don't require elite level performance. And I'm not saying any of this to generalize or stereotype, but maybe you have some members of the team whose job is to clean the office every night. They vacuum, they take out the trash, they wipe down the desks, they clean the kitchen area, which is important. I mean, you want a clean work environment, but the people that are doing that job don't have to be Kobe Bryant. They have to be people that are going to do a good job. They have to be people that are going to live to a standard. They should be people that take pride in their work and understand that providing a clean work environment for the people that are going to come in tomorrow is an important job. I'm by no means demeaning that work, but from a skill set standpoint, they don't need to be elite. Now, if you have a massive company, like your leadership team, your CEO, your CFO, your CMO, those folks you want to have like Kobe Bryant's, like you want the elite because, they're the ones that are driving the business. So some of it, I think you just have to take into account what's the role, what's the standard, and as long as that person meets the standard, that's great. But I do want to say every role is important and every member of the team is important. I don't want the takeaway to be, oh, if you clean the office, that's a menial job and you're not no, I'm not saying that at all. That every person's job should be valued, respected, and appreciated, and every person's job is important. But let's be honest, not every job requires elite level skill sets, elite level mindsets, and you don't need Kobe Bryant to do every job in the business.
No, definitely. But I think that was a good explanation that you gave there, and that every role is important in their way. And then not maybe you need to be an elite performer, but that every task in the office contributes to the overall success of the company.
Absolutely. Well said.
I want to talk about your books also. Your previous book was Sustain Your Game, when you focused a lot on longevity. So you just give a very brief explanation of the book and why did you decide to write it?
To explain Sustain Your Game, let me just put Raise Your Game into context. So when I wrote my first book, Raise Your Game, the entire premise of that are what are the things that we need to do to reach optimal performance, to be able to reach peak performance. But then I realized that that's only half the battle. Reaching the top of the mountain is only part of the journey. The other part of the journey is being able to stay there, is being able to sustain excellence for long periods of time. But most importantly, do so while you're enjoying it. Do so with a level of fulfillment. So that was the reason that I wrote the two books. One is how do you get to the top of the mountain? And then the other is how do you stay there for a long period of time and still enjoy it? And then my third book, Next Play, is a concept that actually fits in both of those different books and is a framework on how we can do both of those things. Next Play is a tool for reaching optimal performance, and it's a tool for sustaining it. You know, one thing I've said with each of the books I've written is I write the books that I need to read myself. And I write the books about things that are challenging for me and that I'm often stuck with. And the underlying theme of Sustain Your Game were the three things that I noticed that tend to undermine longevity and undermine sustained excellence. Things like stress, things like burnout, and things like stagnation and putting on the cruise control. So those were the topics that I really wanted to dive into because those were the very things that were challenging for me.
Burnout is an interesting one when you talk about elite performance, because in business you talk about work-life balance and this type of wording. Is it possible to have a work-life balance when you are an elite performer?
I only pause to answer that because really it comes down to how each person interprets the word balance or their definition of balance. Words have their literal definition, and then their words have an emotional connotation of how that word makes us feel and how we interpret it. For me, I've never liked the word balance. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but my interpretation of balance has always been equality, which means if I'm going to spend 50 hours working, then I should also be spending 50 hours with my family and 50 hours on my health and fitness. And that construct never really worked for me. So the terminology I choose to use is work-life flow or work-life harmony or work-life integration, something where those two things are working together, because I don't really believe in compartmentalizing those things. Yes, some people just have a job that they show up for, they do their job, they go home, and then they're with their family. But for me, I try not to compartmentalize that. Like, I am who I am. I've got the work version of me and I have the at-home version of me, but they're really two sides of the same coin. As a professional keynote speaker, there are times where I'm simply busier. I have more people bringing me in to speak at their events and I'm away from home. And at those times, I spend a little more time working than I spend at home. Then there's other times where it's much slower and I spend more time at home than I actually spend speaking or on the road. So it all kinds of ends up evening out, but I definitely don't have complete balance all of the time. It's more when I step back and I zoom back and I look at the big picture and go, am I present in both places? Do I care about both places? Do I try to show up as my best self and love and support people in both places? And if the answer to that is yes, then I feel like I'm living in flow and in harmony and integration, and I'm not really worried about counting those hours. And from a business standpoint, anyone that's ever started a company or is in a startup will tell you in the beginning few years, you have to work a lot. Like, it's a requirement. If you want to get that thing off the ground, you've got to work a lot. Well, it's the same thing in parenting. I have 3 teenage children. Well, when they were first born and they're infants and they're toddlers, you have to give them a ton of attention just so they'll stay alive. Now that they're teenagers, they hardly even notice if I come or leave the room. So there's different times where it requires more of your attention and focus. What would be a real challenge, and people do this, but what I would perceive as being a real challenge would be starting a company and having a newborn at home. Because you've got 2 things that now would require a tremendous amount of attention, and to do those at the same time would be really hard for me to do. So to me, yeah, it's more holistically, can I just have a life that is in flow and that is in harmony?
I like that. So move on to your next book. You mentioned it, Next Play. I got it right here. You were very, very kind to sign it as well. In all transparency, I have not read it yet, but I will for sure. So you wrote Marcus, make your next play your best play?
Yes. So the concept of next play is to stop focusing on what just happened and focus on what's happening right now. More importantly, stop focusing on what you wished happened, but focus on the reality of what actually happened. I mean, the basic summary of the entire book is to stop focusing on what was and focus on what is. So ultimately, next play is a framework and a tool to get you to dial into the present moment. I still want you to be able to learn from the past, and I still want you to be able to prepare for the future, but neither one of those things is actually tangible or real. The past and the future only exist in language, and they only exist in our mind. The only place we can ever be is in the present moment. So next play is a reminder to focus on what's right in front of you. Don't focus on what just happened. Focus on what's next, what is right in front of you, what is going on in this present moment. And another key component of next play, which is really pivotal, is most of us have conditioned ourselves to respond to life in a very reactionary and emotional way. Something happens and we immediately react based on how we feel. Next play is a framework and a guide to help you be much more thoughtful and intentional in choosing your responses. So you don't have to react emotionally. You can always respond thoughtfully. And to do that, you have to have a level of awareness. You have to be in the present moment. You have to have the emotional regulation tools to say, hey, what just happened really makes me angry or really frustrates me or is not what I wanted to happen, but I still get to choose how to respond to that. And elite high performers and people that use the next play ideology do the best they can to respond in a thoughtful, purposeful, and intentional way that will move them slightly forward. It doesn't mean it's going to fix whatever just happened, but it's going to make sure that they're being very thoughtful in how they choose to respond, because we have to have a level of acceptance and acknowledgement and surrender to the fact that we do not control external circumstances. We don't control what people say or do. We don't control circumstances or events, but we always have the power to control our response to those things. And next play is all about responses. So that's why no matter what happens in your life, Marcus, I want you to have the wherewithal and the emotional regulatory skills to make your next play your best play. And if for any reason it's not, well, there's always another next play. That's the other beauty of it. None of this is permanent. It's all infinite. So at the moment, you make the most thoughtful, intentional, and purposeful decision that you can. And then if that doesn't go the way you want, well, you have another shot to make another next play after that.
I love that. And I will start reading this tonight. I promise you that. I got really hyped up about it right now. And you mentioned before that you write the books that you need to read. So is this with the emotional response? Is that something that you have experienced in your own life?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I just turned 50 years old a couple of months ago, and I have both the optimism and the delusion to believe that I'm only at halftime of my life. I believe I'm going to live another 50 years, very vivacious, energetic, full years. So I'm only at halftime. And my goal is to make my next 50 my best 50, is to learn a lot of lessons from things I did the wrong way and boneheaded mistakes I made in the first 50 years and really try not to repeat those again. And yes, the reason for writing Next Play is that framework has had the biggest shift in my own life. For the first 4+ decades, I allowed myself to get emotionally triggered and to react based on pure emotion, as opposed to being very thoughtful in how I responded. And only in these last couple years have I gotten much better at that. And I'm certainly not coming from a place of mastery. I have not mastered Next Play, but I can say with a huge smile and a wink that I'm better at moving on to the next play today than I have been at any previous time in my life. And I can feel the power and feel how much happier and more fulfilled and how much better life is when I'm in the driver's seat of controlling my response in my next play. So yeah, I wrote that book as almost a personal manifesto to myself for the next 50 years.
That's amazing. There are a lot of people listening that are in the sports industry, want to make a career here and be elite at whatever they do. So what would be some advice to someone who's striving to become elite in their field?
What I would say is elite is more of an evaluation of what other people think of you. Instead of aiming to be elite, aim for personal excellence, because that's something you have control over. Whether or not someone thinks you're elite is purely their opinion. What I would say is aim for excellence. Aim to do the best job you're capable of in everything that you do as consistently as possible. So no matter what your role is, let's even go back to the example I gave earlier. If your role is to clean the office overnight, then make it your goal to do that with excellence. Make it your goal to make sure that that office is cleaner than anyone has ever seen it, that you do everything to such a high standard. And when you aim for excellence, people will take notice. It will start to open up doors and afford you new opportunities. But most importantly, you'll have the personal satisfaction of knowing you did the best you were capable of. And if you focus on internal excellence and living to a standard and doing your best, that's often enough to then end up becoming elite, where people will say you are elite at what you do, and it will open up different doors and opportunities for you moving forward. But it's kind of like success. One of the things I think a lot of people make a mistake on is they let other people define success for them. They let other people say, in order to have a successful life, you have to check all of these boxes. You have to have this job title and make this much money and have this many followers. And that's just a losing game, because you'll never be able to satisfy when other people are in charge of defining you. Instead, I believe success should come from within. At the most fundamental level for me, success is simply a feeling of peacefulness. It's a feeling of fulfillment. It has nothing to do with external accolades. Now, with that being said, I'm competitive. With that said, I'm a capitalist. Like, I'm not saying that life is simply unicorns and rainbows. I work really hard on my business, and I want my business to grow, and I want to work on my craft as a speaker, and I want to earn more money. Yes, I want a bigger social following and to sell more books, because I believe that that will help scale the message and help more people. The difference is I don't let those things define me. How many followers I have on Instagram has nothing to do with my worth as a man or my self-belief or confidence. Now, two things can be true at the same time. Would I like to attract more Instagram followers? Of course, absolutely. That'd be awesome. But that's not what defines me, and it's not what drives me. So I think working from the inside out is really, really important. And as I said with the next play, this is not something I've mastered, but this is something that I'm getting better at, and I'm moving in the right direction. And for me, the direction I'm moving is way more important than where I am at the moment. So as long as I feel like I'm progressing and evolving and becoming a better version of myself by letting go of a lot of the limiting beliefs and things that have gotten in my way before, then I'm feeling that I'm living a very successful and fulfilling life.
I love that. And you have the sign right above your head there, success simplified.
Yes.
And I think you explained that pretty well. That was some great advice for the listeners. I'm interested because we have mentioned, Kobe Bryant and some of the greatest that you have worked with and around. So what are some learnings that you have taken from some of them?
Honestly, really just a summary of everything that we've already talked about. That's the cool part of this. Those elite level performers are very consistent in doing all of the stuff that we've talked about. As kind of a review, they focus on the basics and work on the fundamentals. They have humility, but they still earn the right to be confident. They focus on the process. They understand that discipline is more important than motivation. They're very consistent in performing to a standard, not performing to a feeling. That when things don't go their way, they've learned to be okay with that and then quickly move to the next play. Like, really everything that we've been talking about is a result of everything that I've learned from those elite level performers. And really, they just tend, and I say they as high performers, do all of those things more consistently, more often, and to a higher degree than everybody else. That's what makes them elite. But the beautiful part of that is that means being elite or showing up with excellence is available to all of us. It's an internal choice. Now, as we said, because of the physical component, not everyone has the ability to make the NBA. Like, if you want to be one of the top 450 basketball players in the world, it would be helpful if you are tall and athletic and strong and fit and skilled. So there is a barrier to entry to making the NBA, but there's really no barrier to entry in business. Like, if you do all of the things that you and I have been talking about for the last 45 minutes, and you do them consistently, and you do them to the best of your ability, and you show up with excellence every single day, then you have just as much opportunity as anybody else out there. And to me, that is just an unbelievably powerful construct. It's liberating, it's therapeutic, and it fills me with optimism and excitement to know that I can control my future because the future is completely undetermined, and I'll build my future by all of the decisions and things I do in the present moment.
I love that. So Kobe Bryant obviously isn't with us anymore. Rest in peace. And you worked very closely with him. So what's your some strong memory from him?
Well, for context, I didn't know Kobe super well. I had the opportunity to work as the performance coach at a few different Nike skills academies that were the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy. So I was able to have several conversations with him and observe some of his workouts, his early morning workouts, and kind of be a fly on the wall. And yeah, I mean, that's really what I really learned and observed was his attention to detail, his insatiable drive to be excellent and to be his best self as consistently as possible and to live to a standard, not to a feeling. He was as relentless and as obsessed with excellence as anyone I've ever been around.
I'm sure. It's been a fantastic 45 minutes. I feel pumped up. I'm going to read this book later on here tonight before I go to bed. But I'd like to end on a networking question. It's something that I think is an important one. So who from your network, someone that you know, do you think would be a good guest on this show?
Oh boy, I've got a pretty long list. I'll give you a new name. This is someone I just recently became friends with, and his name is David Posner. And David is a longtime referee, a basketball referee. And he's now doing some corporate speaking, and he talks and teaches about the leadership traits that all of us can learn from referees, and that the skill sets it takes to be a good referee are many of the same skill sets it takes to be a good entrepreneur, business leader, manager. I find it really interesting. Now, obviously, I'm a basketball guy, so anything that comes from the basketball world, I find interesting, but I'd be happy to introduce you to David. And I think you guys would have an awesome conversation about his work as a referee and how we can take those traits and apply them to every area of our life.
Definitely. That sounds super interesting. And I've done some reffing myself for ice hockey back in the day. So that's the right down my wheelhouse.
Awesome. Then you guys will have a great conversation.
Awesome. Alan Stein, thank you so much for taking the time to join Sports Management Podcast.
My pleasure. This was so much fun. You asked great questions and I really enjoyed it. I hope we get an opportunity to meet in person. And as you said, maybe someone will bring me out to Sweden or somewhere in Europe to give a keynote or to talk at a conference or to talk to your business. Would love to make that happen. This was a lot of fun for me. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. That's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter.com/zip.